But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Let me tell you about my great God. Hey guys, Pastor Tim here. Hope you're ready to get your day started off in God's Word. We are in Genesis chapter 16, and even after the previous chapter in which God reaffirms to Abraham the promises he made unto him and the covenant he made in promising him a son, all right, and a nation and a great name and so forth, we see Sarah here have a lapse of faith. She grows impatient. All right, and she does something very familiar to what Adam and Eve did back in the Garden of Eden. She starts playing the blame game. All right, we see first of all she blames God for leaving her barren, not able to have a child, and forgetting that God promised her a child. Instead of having faith and trusting God to work things in His time, she decides to take matters into her own hands, and she realizes, you know what? I have this handmaiden. Hagar from Egypt, most likely someone they got from Egypt when they went there when they shouldn't have. All right, and she offers Abraham this scenario. She says, hey, why don't you, obviously God's not going to give me a child, so why don't you take my handmaiden Hagar, take her unto you to be your wife, as a wife, and then have a child with her, and that will be your heir. Kind of like trying to make some sort of workaround to what God has promised. Like it would still technically be Abraham's son, but that's obviously not what God intended. And there's one phrase I want you guys to understand from Abraham's life, and that you can apply to your life definitely from here forward, and that is the phrase, scheming is not believing. All right, Sarah's trying to scheme. She's growing impatient, and she's trying to fulfill God's plans, quote unquote, but mostly she's trying to fulfill her own desires. And in her schemes, it's showing her lack of faith in God. Scheming is not believing. And this causes trouble for Sarah, because as soon as Hagar becomes pregnant and she's with child, she starts to despise Sarah, her master, in her eyes. Because now she's puffed up, she's prideful, thinking, I'm able to give Abraham what you couldn't. And of course, Sarah doesn't like this, and continuing the blame game. Remember, first she blames God for not giving her a child. Now she's blaming Abraham for the situation she's in with now with her handmaiden. How her handmaiden feels greater than her master because she's able to give Abraham a son. And it's kind of ironic in a way, because this was all her plan to begin with, yet she's blaming everybody but herself. And Abraham, I don't know if he deals with this in the best way. He just kind of sits back and is like, you know what, she's your handmaiden, do with her as you see fit. And she deals harshly with her to the point where she actually gets up and runs away. All right, but God, in His grace, in mercy, He meets Hagar in the desert and tells her to return unto Sarah and Abraham. And He promised her, much the same with Abraham, that, hey, you will have a son, and he will be the father of a great many people, of a great nation. All right, and his name shall be Ishmael. Now, she goes back and she has a son. Abraham calls him Ishmael, and he raises him as his own son. I mean, it is his son. But this wasn't the promised heir. This wasn't the promised son God had intended in the covenant He made with Abraham. We know that to be later on Isaac. And this causes problems because of Sarah's lapse of faith, her lack of faith in God, and taking matters into her own hands and scheming instead of believing. This causes problems for Israel way into the future. All right, the people that come from Ishmael, all right, battle with the children of Israel throughout all of history, even until today as well. And it all goes right back to this incident here. Now, if you're asking what my main point for today's chapter would be, it would be that true faith is shown through patience. Sarah, she became impatient, and in her impatience, she took matters into her own hands. She did not wish to trust or follow God any longer. But true faith in God, guys, is going to be shown in patience. God doesn't work on our time. He works on His timetable. All right? So far be it from us to expect Him to do things when we want Him to. No, He's God. We don't demand that of Him. We trust Him. That's all I got for today's chapter. I hope you guys had a great time reading through it, writing many things down. Tell somebody what you got out of God's Word. Stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.